All right, everybody, welcome back to the lunch table. Food for thought. My name is Nico Blitz. And you know, I like to put on all the Filipino artists in the world.
Hey,
Shout out to Inigo Pascual. Shout out to Kiana V. Shout out to just Bugoy Drilon as well. But shout out to our special guest today, the hip hop fanatic straight out the Bay Area, man,
woo!
Ruby Ibarra.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Nico. Those names, those are all heavy hitters. It is an honor to even be included on that list of your guests now going to be on the honorees of being on the lunch table. So I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Well, you know, I've been trying to get you on for years now, right?
I think the blame and the fault is like on this end of the table.
No, it's all good. Honestly, I didn't realize how busy you are until I actually met you. So the first time I met you, I think was you were doing a performance at a park over here in LA. And I didn't think, well, not that I didn't think, I knew you were going to bring a crowd, but the crowd that you got there was just so infectious and just knew every single lyrics to your song. I was like, damn. She got this crowd popping right now. Not to mention we were in LA, and what really got me hooked on you for at that specific moment was when you performed here, and I think you did a Mac Dre rendition to it. And
Yeah,
I was
me and
just
the
like,
Balikbayans definitely had to represent, like, whether we're down in LA or we go out to the Philippines, like we definitely bring, that Bay Area flavor with us. So we had to go out there and rep. But thank you. I appreciate that. That was definitely, I think, just for me personally, one of my top 5 performances with my Balikbayans band. It was incredible. Like you said, the energy was, off the charts that evening. And it was just an amazing experience. And sadly, you won't see it for a while. We won't get to experience that for a while, but it was definitely good to have in the books.
yeah, well, I mean, you've been to the Philippines since. I saw you also perform over at the observatory a couple years ago. How do you feel as an artist? Because it's during quarantine, you obviously can't go out and perform. It must have been sucking over this past year.
It has been. I'm, just to be fully transparent with you, Nico. It took a lot of, meditation and reminding myself that this isn't something that's going to be forever. This is temporary at the time, and I think I had to also recognize that at the end of the day, there's a bigger picture. It's not just me that's affected. Obviously, when we're thinking about just the entertainment industry as a whole, it's not even just performers and artists like myself. That also includes people who do sound management, organizers, people who help run the show, the band. People across the board have been affected, and it just sucks. It sucks that we're still kind of in this weird pause right now. But I feel like I think the silver lining in all of this, and just the past year alone, is I think a lot of us as artists have gotten to kind of do a lot of reflection and to remember who we are. And I think in doing so, that gives us material to write about. So that's definitely helped me in, getting back into the studio and writing and recording again, and just kind of slow down and be present again. I feel like I was kind of in a whirlwind, especially after Circa 91 dropped, and I just did a lot of back-to-back shows. I was pretty much on the road every single week. When you get into that kind of mode where you're constantly on the go, and your schedule is always your mindset is always, where am I going to next. It's always you kind of gain kind of like this tunnel vision, and I think that's what I kind of had in the last 2 years. And what 2020 taught me was to sit down, be present, be here, be in the moment,
And really just relax. Because what Circa 91 dropped in 2017, yeah?
yep.
So it's been like a full 4 years. Well, 3 years of you really just pushing that album. I kept on seeing year after year, okay, Circa 91 year 1. Okay, still Circa 91 year 2.
You're probably
Okay,
like,
still Circa 91
hey,
year 3. And
how
I'm just
long
like,
you gonna
yo,
milk this for?
huh?
You're probably like, how long am I gonna milk this for?
Hey, but honestly, like I've never seen anybody milk an album for as long as you have, so I really gotta congratulate you on that. I think because from my perspective, right? Like maybe some people might think, oh, Ruby like isn't coming up with new material, which I highly doubt because you've been dropping singles over these past couple of years. But like I've never seen someone just care so much about a project, to the point where you want to push it for 3 years straight, and still to this day you're still pushing it. Like from your perspective, like is that something that was like purposeful, or did it just so happen like, oh well, we just so happen to be pushing this album for 3 years?
That's actually a really good question. Something that no one's asked me before. I feel like people just didn't want to hurt my feelings. No, I'm just playing. I think honestly, it wasn't me consciously deciding that I'm gonna spend X amount of years promoting this project or doing A, B, and C. Um, following the release. I think it was more so the response that I got. I saw like this window of opportunity where people were basically interested in the project. They were invested in the music videos. I mean, just us alone, I feel gave me so many different opportunities. The Us music video gave me so many different opportunities even outside of music, where it was just I had to just put on the seatbelt and go along with the ride. And I'm just very blessed and lucky that it's gotten me to the places and the stages that I've been able to get on so far. And
Hmm.
I'm also thankful that now I'm in a time where, okay, I did Circa 91, and as an artist, I also take that experience as a learning experience, and now I know how to move forward with the sophomore album.
So like from Circa 91, right? You've obviously had Us, which congratulations, it just hit 1 million views on YouTube.
Woo!
You've had your song on Always Be My Maybe, not part of Circa 91, but obviously with you, like, pushing your music, it's helped you get to that platform. MasterCard commercials, NPR, like you are a very busy person, but like what was like the one thing out of Circa 91 where you're just like, wow, I just can't believe this came out of this album?
That's a really good question too.
Y'all hear
Um,
that? Back to back questions where she's like,
I
damn, I
feel
don't
like
know how
a
to answer
question.
that.
I feel like I'm in therapy right now or something. Like you have me like really thinking about it. Now, I think I can't really pinpoint one specific outcome that came out of Circa 91. So I'm gonna kind of cheat with my answer.
Yeah.
If I could name maybe the top two or three,
Hmm.
and you mentioned one of them already. I think obviously one of the ones at the top of that list is the Mastercard commercial. They came across my album Circa 91, which then led them to when I say them, it was the people who were behind the production of that commercial that were putting that together. And after hearing Circa 91, it led them to finding me on YouTube also, and they came across one of my older videos, Step Your Game Up.
Hmm.
And they contacted me, and that eventually led to a nationwide commercial that was broadcasted on a bunch of different networks. It played during the Super Bowl, it played during Grammys week, and
Hmm.
on top of that, there were three billboards in the middle of New York City, one of them being right across Madison Square Garden. Like here, we've met already in person. Like how short I am. I'm 5 feet tall. Like that's what I put in all my applications, all forms. Like I put 5 feet. I'm like, I am not putting anything less than 5 feet. Like
Yeah.
let's just round up and call it 5 feet. And so like how short I am, and to see myself on basically the size of one of these New York City buildings, I think that to me was one of those first moments in my
Mm.
career where I was just like, am I seeing this right now, where I kind of just had to take a step back, and I was honestly just speechless, and it just felt really surreal because I had never imagined for someone like me, especially being an immigrant coming from Tacloban City, starting school, and teachers thinking that I didn't even know how to speak English, and now
Mm.
here I am on a billboard because of a commercial that's airing on television. Like you can like that's only like the wildest dreams that you can imagine. Like there's no way I would have thought that that could eventually happen. And so seeing that, I think, in person was also a reminder to me of the grind and the hustle that it took to get to that point, and also made me appreciate, especially, of course, my parents, especially my mom. And these are the things that I do for them, for my family, like to be able to say, like, look, we came here with $0 in our pocket, and now we're here in the middle of the biggest city in America. So that for me for sure was one of the highlights of my career so far. Sorry, by the way, for my
No,
long-winded answer.
no. Ruby, I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I'm like shaking right now. I'm like
You
legitimately
gotta, you
shaking
gotta turn
right.
on your heater. There's like
No, 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 no,
cold
no.
weather
It's not.
surge throughout the country.
No, it's not. It's not even the heat. It's not even the cold. It's not even that. You know what it is, Ruby? It's as soon as you said, like, like this commercial hit the Super Bowl. I legitimately was like tearing up when I saw SZA perform at the Super Bowl this year. God, I'm fucking getting emotional. I don't know what's happening. But like I legitimately teared up when I saw SZA perform at the Super Bowl. Not only because she's from the Bay, but yes, because she's Filipino. You and SZA both made it to the Super Bowl somehow, some way. And it makes me so proud to be Filipino, dude. It makes me so proud to see both of you on like the biggest American platform damn near, right? And I really had to tell you, like, I remember when I first discovered you was when you dropped Us. And even though it's for like Filipino women empowerment specifically, that was the first time. Oh, her, my bad. It was her, her. Her was
Yeah,
at the
her.
Super Bowl. But
Yeah, she did the anthem.
yeah, her. But when I first saw Us, and even though it's specifically geared toward like Filipino women empowerment, like that was the first time I ever saw anybody be like so proud to be Filipino. And honestly,
Mm,
like you're the one who really inspired me to like really try to get to know more about my culture or our culture and see like the struggles that we had to go through. You were saying like, like as an immigrant, like you and your family, they came here with like $0. I found out my grandpa came here with like $15 over in the Bay Area, and you're just kind of like, damn, like you once you understand the struggles that like our parents or our grandparents had to go through, it's kind of like, yo, like life, even if we're in quarantine, like it's really not that hard.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a challenge. I don't know how you grew up in LA, right, Nico?
No, I grew up in San Francisco.
You grew up in the Bay too. Yeah,
Yep.
like I feel like for us then, as Filipino Americans who grew up in the Bay, if you really think about it, we're fortunate in a way that there were still a lot of pockets, within our communities where there were Filipino. You could go to a Filipino restaurant, you'd be able to see a Filipino walking down the street. But I think when I first started performing outside of California, and I went to places like Denver or Madison, Wisconsin, and sometimes our Filipino clubs would only literally be 5 people, and
Yeah.
and they said to go to Jollibee they need to travel out of state. Like something as simple as that are things that I think we also take for granted as especially Filipino Americans on the West Coast, because I think it wasn't until I did the Circa 91 project where I realized that there is such a huge hunger for people wanting to feel seen, wanting to feel like they belong. Because even now, when you think about it, it's 2021. Yeah, we have her. We have Bruno Mars. We have all these different people, and maybe Jabberwockies, Manny
Yeah.
Pacquiao. But it's still compare that list though to other celebrities, other people that you might have grew up listening to or grew up idolizing. They usually weren't Filipino Americans. And I think having, that void growing up, especially, it affects you. It affects how you come into your identity and how you understand yourself. And so, I think that was my main objective really, with
Mm,
the Us video, is to make sure that, 10 years down the line, 15 years down the line, people can look at that video, and say, like, that looks like my little sister, or that reminds me of my cousin. Because I realize that there is an importance, not only a hunger, but there's an importance for representation.
yeah. truthfully. And I still even think to this day, like, there's still an importance to do it. It's funny because I remember when I started Twitch, right? I wasn't sure how to act. I was like, well, do I just act like the radio personality that I am? Do I just act kind of cool? Like, what do I do? And then more so, like, over these past couple of months during quarantine, I've like became more of myself. Like, I've become more Filipino. I teach my Mexican girlfriend how to speak Tagalog. Like, people who don't even know like what Tagalog is, they're starting to learn Tagalog in my chat. And I'm just like, wow, like, it's funny because to us, we've been doing this our whole lives, really. But to
Hmm.
everyone else, it's like, what is this? Like, this is so interesting. Like, what's a birdie? What's a peckbag? Like, what is this stuff? And people are just like, oh, okay. Like, now we can kind of like bridge the cultures together. And like, to wrap that up, like, I feel like just be proud of who you are, really. It goes back to the conversation. I remember going back to the Philippines when I was young, and my aunties and like other relatives, they would have like that whitening cream. And I remember, I think it's in Circa 91 too. You mentioned like, why are we gonna put this whitening cream on ourselves? Like, be proud of how brown you are. And it just fathoms it. It doesn't make sense to why we still worry about these things to this day.
Yeah, honestly, that's something that was a conversation that I felt needed to happen. We grow up, a lot of us, a lot of Philams grow up, not even just Philams, just Filipinos worldwide grow up hearing it from even within our smallest of circles, which is our family. That's how I learned it within my household. Obviously, I consider myself, more on the lighter end of the Filipino skin tone spectrum. And
Hmm.
growing up, my sister is actually darker than me. She's definitely a lot darker in terms of the shade of her skin. And so I'd hear this constantly of whether it was my mom, my aunties, or even neighbors telling my sister like, why don't you use some whitening skin? Or, like, well, how come you're not as light as your sister? And I saw the damage that it did ultimately, to her psyche and how she viewed herself. And it just sucks that that's still a reality today. Like, for example, when I went to the Philippines with the band Balikbayans 2 years ago. We were at the airport in Manila getting ready to board the plane back to San Francisco. And one of the last, you know how they have one of those like small pop-up shops next to where people are waiting to board the plane.
Yeah.
Of course, I see a whole section, a whole row of skin whitening creams, skin whitening soaps, and it's just this constant brainwashing. I think that's it's still occurring, in our community and in our culture, and obviously, I think it stems from colonialism.
Hmm.
From us being brainwashed to think that we need to look more Eurocentric or we need to look, more Spanish, and a lot of that just honestly just we need to unlearn a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, we truthfully do. And, I think it's also important that we educate. I mean, I don't have any kids, but that's definitely something I'm going to tell my kid. Like, yo, like, you brown as fuck. You're going to be so brown. You better be proud of that brown skin color. I'm going to tell you that much.
Hell
But,
yeah.
but, like, I think also within the past year, it's been kind of hard not only to be Filipino, but just to be Asian in general. I remember at the radio station I used to work at, as soon as coronavirus hit, COVID-19, like, I had a couple people coming up to me and they were just like, yo, stay away. And I'm just like, uh, fun and games, whatever. But then you see like it happening constantly within this past year. I don't know if you saw, but like, like somebody in the Bay Area, like the rest in peace to this old man, but he ended up getting mugged and pushed down. Then he died like 3 days later. And like, I feel like people are now are definitely targeting like the Asian community, especially when it comes to this COVID-19 thing. And I wanted to ask you, like, what is your take on all of that happening? And like, have you ever been like a victim of like the racism that's been happening over the past year, or just in general?
I first started noticing this trend probably around this time, not this time, or more so April, maybe April or May of last year.
Hmm.
You'd see like an article or two, and then photos would surface on social media. And I remember at the time, I really didn't understand, like, how could people be so hateful, and how could people, you know, have this anger and this racism just because they're stereotyping that, with coronavirus, being in the midst of the pandemic, people are saying that, it's Chinese or Asian Americans' fault that, this virus is here. And I think, obviously a lot of that was due to the fact that the person who used to be in charge of this country had a lot of nasty rhetoric every time he was on stage, and then, a lot of xenophobic comments. And, people, that's why it's so important when you're a person of power, when you're in a position of power, that you are mindful of the things that you say, because people take that as facts, people take that as truth, and people follow in your footsteps. And, it just, for me to see this also to continue, to this year as well, because I think I just saw, just a couple of days ago, on some of my friends like Instagram stories, it's more have surfaced, especially here in the Bay Area, a lot of,
Yeah.
you know a lot of violence, especially Asian American elderly too. That the fact that it's happening to a lot of elderly people, I think, is what I just couldn't understand why it was happening. And basically, as I've thought about this in these last couple of weeks, um, I'm just reminded. I can't help but remember, my grandma, or remember my mom, and, thinking about their safety. Like, what if they're the ones going out in the street, and me feeling like, if I'm out with my mom, is she gonna get jumped? Walking in the middle of San Francisco or something like that.
Hmm.
And so, these are definitely, dangerous. It's dangerous in some of these communities, to know that, this kind of stuff is happening, and that it's being captured on camera. People have photos of it. And I, I I think I'm also at the same time also mindful and cognizant of the fact that we also have to be careful in how we approach, some sense of healing, in this, because I've seen that, sometimes people are like, if you find this person, go contact the cops, and stuff like that. So we also have to remember that, it's not the cops that are going to save us or help us in these kinds of situations. It's more so, how do we, heal our communities together, so that, or educate people also, and remove the ignorance that's existing in, a lot of people's mindsets and how they view other people. And I think, you know one of the first steps that we can do is definitely to educate people, so that, this ignorance, doesn't exist, and people aren't racist towards, certain communities. And I want to also remind people to be mindful of the fact that, this isn't a moment where we should be pointing fingers and saying this
Mm.
community is attacking the Asian American community. Like,
Hmm.
that's not going to solve anything. If anything, what's more important right now more than ever is to build solidarity, especially with the Black community. We need to make sure that, we stand in solidarity with them, because, as if anything, as we saw with last year, there's still, a very big problem in this country, whether it's around police brutality, or,
Hmm.
more so in the bigger picture of just racism. We're all people of color, at the end of the day. That's in this conversation. We're minorities in this country, and solidarity, I think, is very important in order for us to move forward. Definitely in terms of, peace and healing.
Yeah. Well, that's why I was having a conversation with my friend Demo D, who's actually in this chat. And, he was actually saying that, like, our conversation went as, it sucks because the media doesn't want to put the Asian American stories like that out in the world, even though, like, they are happening damn near every single day. And it it sucks because other minorities are attacking the Asian Americans, specifically elderly Asian Americans. Now, when you look at the scope and what happened like last year, right? Obviously, Black Lives Matter. It sucks because I feel like when specifically older people look at like a black person attacking an older Asian person, it's kind
Hmm.
of like, oh well, this is why maybe all blacks are bad. Maybe we shouldn't be standing with them. It's like, no, like it was just that specific person that we should be looking at, not the black community or whatever community they belong to as a whole. Just because you find one bad person who does that doesn't mean that they represent the entire culture. And I think
Exactly.
it's important for people to understand that. The same way, if myself or yourself did something wrong, we don't represent all Filipinos. we just represent ourselves. So don't target the entire culture.
I'm so glad that you said that, Nico. That's absolutely right. The worst thing that we can do right now, again, is to point fingers and to put blame on a certain community. That's not the right way to go about it. So that's why I myself, I've been very careful in what I share and what I post around,
Mhm.
this, these things that are happening, because I want to make sure that if I'm going to have a conversation about it, that it's going to be fruitful, that it's not going to come from a place of negativity, and it's not going to lead to more racism, because that's not going to be helpful at all.
Amen. Were you able to like attend any of the protests last year?
I did. So we had some in here locally where I live, Black Lives Matter rallies and gatherings, and it was I can't even, like, every time I think about last summer specifically, I think it was like the first week of June. That was a heavy couple weeks, especially seeing Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, seeing them on the news, seeing them in the headlines. But you can't help but also think that this isn't new. Like, this has been happening historically in
Mm,
this country. But I think, for the first time, it was put and highlighted on the news on such a massive scale, where
mhm.
everyone who had a television and turn it on saw it. And I think for a lot of people, who were kind of still, in kind of living in ignorance, they didn't realize that this kind of stuff is happening on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Black people are still being discriminated against in this country, and I think, if anything, it did open up a lot of conversations, and it I just hope that we don't have to be in a place like that again in this country, where every single week it's a different name. Black people should not be a hashtag.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have to continually, um, have to remind people that racism is bad. Like, this is something that should already be known, should be common sense. And so I think, so to me, I think it serves as a reminder that there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. Whether it is completely, reformatting how the justice system is in this country, or
Mm.
educating people more about race, or basically, I think honestly, Nico, I think that from the bottom up, there needs to be a restructuring for sure.
Yeah, well, I do think it starts with us because, you think about how, I mean, I'm not sure how you grew up, but like, when I grew up, like, I wasn't aware about all the like racial slurs and everything going on around me because it was kind of just like put away. Like I was put together with all the Filipinos and all the Latinos, and we kind of just like had our own little bubble. And it's like I didn't grow up knowing that like people were racist toward black people. I didn't even realize people were racist toward like our group until I come to realize like, oh, this has been happening for years now. I probably went through a moment and I didn't even realize like this person was looking at me like, oh, this brown skinned kid. I think the benefit of what's happening now is that like it's because it's on such a wider scale. And I like to tell people that if you don't know what to do, the best thing you can really do is just educate yourself on everything. You don't I feel like you don't have to be at every single protest. I elected not to go to the protest because my sister just had a niece and I was going back and forth between the Bay and I didn't want to tamper with COVID-19 at that. And I just felt like, hey, I can at least do my part, get some education on and share that with my cluster and see like, hey, like we can just continue to educate ourselves. And if one racist comes our way, we can just educate them. So,
Yeah, I'm totally with you. It's all about educating, especially, when it comes, I think at the end of the day, when it comes to educating, no one can force you to want to learn about something. It starts with yourself, and then next, I think it starts within just your immediate family. I can say, for a fact, in our community, in the Filipino American community, anti-blackness is a very real thing. I mean,
mhm.
that's why we were just talking about skin whitening soaps, just a couple conversations ago. That alone is rooted in anti-blackness. That alone is teaching young Filipinos that black is bad, black is wrong, and we should aspire to be light, and we should aspire to be white. And it's something that's actually as simple as that. is very detrimental, to how our minds think and how we eventually grow up to be the people that we are. And so even something like that, having a conversation within our family, interrogating ourselves, asking yourself, like, what kind of things have I kind of just let happen in the past? Have I been
Mhm.
vocally an advocate, for the Black community? Have I, have I confronted my friends who might have said some, problematic things? I think it really starts with yourself, and then also with your inner circle. And I think that's really where the important dialogue needs to happen.
Well, I'm not sure if you follow One Down Media on Instagram.
I do.
So,
They're the
yeah,
homies. Shout out
I
to Leo and Grass.
yeah, shout out to Leo. They do amazing Filipino content. I love them. But they posted something a couple weeks ago that really caught my attention, and it was right before inauguration day. It was actually around election, right? And it said like these are reasons why why our Filipino parents, for example, support Trump. And maybe it goes back to like some of our Filipino parents were in the war. A lot of like Catholicism are mixed in with Republican views, so it kind of gets like mixed in together. How do you I know there's somebody in here listening to this interview thinking like, "Oh, there's a family member of mine who is a Republican or who just straight up supports Trump." I'm not sure if you've been in that situation, but like how would you go about that situation and like actually being vocal about, like, "Hey, like this guy isn't what you think he is. This guy is racist. This guy just I'm happy he's out." But how do you go about that?
It's definitely, I think, more common than we think, especially in our community. I don't know if you remember when, the insurrection happened at the Capitol building.
Yeah.
I came across one photo. I think it was someone's, Filipino, tito or tita. They held like a walisting thing, like the broom, and they were decked out in like the three stars in the sun with their outfit. Like, you could tell they're Filipino, and they
Mhm.
were part of that insurrection. And I remember thinking, "Oh hell no, you're making us look bad. Like, what are you doing in there?" It was so embarrassing.
Yeah.
And so that reminded me, like, even not within my family, like, I'm super, like, I'm super thankful that my mom totally understands, like, the things that I talk about in my music, and that she she's obviously liberal in terms of her beliefs. But thinking about having those difficult conversations, I myself haven't had to do that yet, but I can only imagine, how nerve-wracking it would be to have to kind of confront, especially if it's
Mhm.
someone that you're related to. That is very difficult to have to come kind of sit down and have a serious conversation with them about it. Because when we at the end of the day, when we talk about things like political stance or your political beliefs or what party you subscribe to, that is all very personal. I think that isn't just you claiming, like, I want to be a Democrat. I think that's also rooted in your other beliefs. And what do you believe in terms of economics? What do you believe in terms of
Mhm.
social justice? What do you believe in terms of just everything that comes along with that? And for me, I think what I would do, especially if it was centered around, them being a Trump supporter, I would have to really be honest with them and be raw and come from a place of more so, I think, not where you're attacking that person, because I think
Mhm.
that that conversation isn't going to be fruitful. But I think having a conversation that's humanizing, the reason. So, like, look, if you support, this particular person, look at the damage that's done, especially to these certain communities. And I think, having humanizing it in that way will allow the other
Mm.
person to see it.
Humanizing it. That's the best way to go about it. But, I think it goes back to make sure you educate yourself before you get into that conversation because you don't wanna be looking like, "Oh, yeah, never mind."
Everyone here, educate yourself.
Educate yourself. Speaking of educating myself, I actually just learned that you're an essential worker too?
I am.
Dude, I was like, I just YouTubed your name just to see like what was going on recently, and you were just on the news. And you're actually working on like coronavirus tests too?
We have been. So I think not a lot of people know it yet, actually, but I have been a little bit more open and posting about this, my day job on social media ever since last year, honestly, since we've been in this pandemic. But basically, I went to UC Davis. That's where I studied in college. And I ended up majoring and finishing with biochemistry and molecular biology as my major. I know. Nerd alert. I know.
Oh wait, look, before you continue, look who we got in here. You got your
Nico!
drummer in here. Shout out to Meek
What up,
Films,
Nick? I'm
1993.
biased.
Hey, there we go. There we go. So UC Davis,
Nico's probably
biochemistry.
hella laughing at me right now, talking about my nerd ways right now. But
Well, I
but
would have never guessed. You're like the spawn. You're like the golden spawn of all Filipinos. You're an entertainer and you're still a scientist. What?
I didn't do nursing though, so I still let my mom down a little bit. That she still shed one little tear of her hopes and dreams.
But so you went to UC Davis for biochem then, yeah?
I went to UC Davis for biochem, and straight out of college, pretty much 6 months out, I started working right away. And so, I've been in biotech, these last couple years, and honestly, from the start of it, it was more so, I think, I loved science as a kid, but I saw the career more so as a means for me to provide capital for
Mm,
my career as an artist. Because
mm,
for the artists that are here in the chat that are tuned in, you all know how much it costs for certain opportunities. Like even like to be able to get yourself a microphone. It's hella expensive, like to buy your own equipment. Like you really need to invest in yourself. And, that's what I tell a lot of people that are my peers within music. Like investing in yourself is definitely very important, because at the end of the day, if you're not going to invest in yourself, no one else is going to want to invest in you. That needs to happen first. And so that was my mentality really at the start of it. Was okay, I got to get a stable job, because in order for me, to do these gigs at the time, some gigs weren't even paying me. I was getting paid. Sometimes universities would be like, hey, can you do a 30-minute performance? We'll pay you in lumpia. Like I literally
oh
had
god.
one college straight up say, I'll pay you in lumpia for a performance. Sometimes I would drive down all the way to Irvine and just be compensated for gas, and then have to drive back up the very same night. And that's, I
Sheesh.
mean, not to say that I hated that. I felt like those experiences were pivotal. They were important in the journey, because that kind of stuff teaches you to not take things for granted once you make it to the position that you want to be in. And
Mhm.
so that really taught me from the start that I got to be hungry and I got to have this drive if I want to reach my dreams. And so when it came to like again my career, I really saw it as more of a way for me to be able to pay for gas, to be able to buy my own mic, to be able to set up my own studio at home. And fast forward to last year, 2020 came around. I think it was March. It's pretty
Mhm.
much like been a year now since we've been in lockdown, and shelter in place was mandated here in California. And that to me was the first time where I kind of took a step back, and I was like, wow, my job is kind of important. And I
It's very
remember
essential.
I remember like our my supervisor, coming up to me like in the middle of my shift, and he was basically telling me that, look, probably for the next 6 months, we're gonna work a lot of extra hours. We might need you to come in during the weekends. You're gonna need to be part of some projects to do more research on the coronavirus. And since then, since summer of last year, my company's actually been one of the biotech companies that's been helping in research towards the coronavirus test kits. Like we've been putting those test kits together at our job at our job, and then also in addition to that, also projects and research around the vaccine. So we've been working closely hand in hand with these other companies that are now releasing these vaccines, and we did like the testing for them and stuff like that.
Oh my god. You're
It's pretty intense.
that
This last year has been pretty crazy. So Nico, I also have to share that January of 2020. my goal for that year was to actually quit my job. I was like, okay,
Uh,
this is the year I'm gonna go full-time musician. When March rolls or when March rolls around, I'm gonna have to like submit my 2 weeks and I'm gonna go in on this music career. Because at that time I was also planning to be in the Philippines, or I was already scheduled to be in the Philippines for a month to be like a guest judge at some singing competition out there.
mhm.
And I had all these things lined up. And then of course, when the pandemic hit, it's like everything got canceled except for my job. So at first I was like, what's going on? What did I do? What did I do that everything everything, like, I was also supposed to get married last year. Like, my wedding got canceled. These trips got canceled, all these gigs got canceled, some other opportunities got canceled. I was like, but my job is still here. This is the one that I was supposed to quit. But at the end of the day, what I realized was, damn, like, not just our community, but everyone worldwide needs companies like the company that I work for.
Mhm.
Because at the end of the day, it's the essential workers and the frontline workers. By the way, shout out to everybody that's been working at the post office, the grocery
Mhm.
stores, and of course our nurses and doctors. Like, these are the people that have helped, continue, for us to be able to continue and to, keep life going.
Yeah. I mean, you need people to perform in front of if you want to perform, right? But I mean, on a serious note too, I think what's even good about this past year was that, like, I'm assuming you've been able to stack up your bread even more because you're not going out, you're not touring anyway. So it's like when that point does come when you're just like, hey, like, I'm ready to quit, like, I'm assuming you have like your bank account's like, okay, we can do whatever we want now for this next year. We just got to make sure we're good. We got to make sure we make it this year.
I
But
have been. I've been able to, obviously, as you see with the lights in the back, like, that's. I mean, I have nowhere to go, so I'm like upgrading my studio. But also being a sneakerhead, having a shoe addiction doesn't help. So I can't 100% say that I've been
okay,
stacking up
okay,
money.
Rube. Since we're on the sneaker conversation, what's the most recent pair of sneakers you bought?
Oh dang! Okay, we're gonna
Bust
go
them
with
out.
that.
Bust them out.
Let me. Okay, give me 1 second.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And Blitz World, the lunch table. If you guys have any questions for Ruby Ibarra, please let us know in the chat room right now. Right now, she is just looking for a pair of shoes that she has bought recently. Ruby Ibarra, biotech engineer by day, rapper by night, shoe head by dawn, and I think that's a couple of the things that falls under Ruby Ibarra's many hats. DJ Shaolim in the building, Jay Benitez in the building, Demo D. Also, huge shout out to Miko in the building. If you did not know, Meek Films 1993 is actually the drummer of the Balik Bayan. So
Please
show
shout
that
out to
man some love.
Nico.
All right, Ruby's back with her shoes. What you got? What you got? What, what are those?
This is the Jordan U and the Union LA collab. I had to
Ooh,
get these. Like, these were super sick.
damn.
Some shoes are already like tucked away in my closet. Like, I bought a bunch of, like, I am a big fan of Stussy. Like, I love that brand so much. So I also got a bunch of Stussy
Ooh.
Nike collabs. But this is actually my favorite pair that I've gotten. And this is a one of one.
A
I know
one
that
of
this wasn't part of our scheduled segment, but Nike has been doing a lot of these Nike by You
uh huh.
on the website, like, where you can customize your own shoes. And so they did Air Force Ones recently, and I just had to do one for the Circa 91, which is of course the project that changed my life. This is the same colorway as the album cover. You got the black, you got the white, you got the red, and of course you need to have the brown for the skin as
There
well.
we go.
If you actually hold this up right next to the album cover, it's like exactly, it's pretty much like the same
Damn.
colorway, and you got the 91 on the back too. That,
Ooh.
for me, this is actually my most favorite because it's obviously has significance, personal significance for
Have
me.
you worn those shoes yet?
Hell no, I'm gonna put this like in a glass box.
Hey, off tops, you wait a couple years, them shoes gonna be worth like I say 100K at the very least.
If I'm ever in a drought, we're gonna raffle off this pair.
And what size are those?
I have small feet. I'm small
Ah,
feet gang. I'm size 6 in women's, which is like 4.5 in men's.
hey
Super
Ruby,
tight.
Ruby, if I ever make $1 million and that's just like whatever money, I'm gonna make sure I buy those shoes off of you.
Hey.
Oh man. Ruby, so there's been like your music has really gone everywhere. I don't know if people know, but you actually have the title track for Always Be My Maybe. And your song A Thousand Cuts is actually a title track for another Filipino documentary. What how is this happening? First, get to the Ali Wong Always Be My Maybe. I've always wanted to ask you that. How did that happen?
So the history of that actually goes back to 2017, and the reason is I actually recorded, I'd say 80% of Circa 91 the summer of 2017. So this is like maybe 3-4 months before the release of the album. And in one of those sessions, I was recording in the Beat Rock studio, which is down in Inglewood.
Mm,
Shout out to Fat Gums. Um, I remember I was at Fat Gum Studio, and we were recording the classroom skit one evening. It was like 7 o'clock at night. And then all of a sudden, Fat Gums, he leaves and he's like, "Oh, my friend just got here." He said, "Is it cool if she comes in and watches and says hi?" I'm like, "Okay, that's fine with me." And me and my friend, shout out to Paula V, who did the voice for the teacher. We were just in the booth. We were trying to get the lines together. And then I think 15 minutes passed. We're like, the friend didn't come here yet, and then it was already dinner time. And then we're like, me and Paula V were like, "Let's get back to the house." So Fat Gums has in his backyard, there's a separate building, which is where he built his own studio. So we
mm.
leave that studio to go to the main house. And right there, sitting at the dining table, is Ali Wong herself. And I remember the first thing that happens is me and my friend, like, we make eye contact. We're like, it, we kind of established like this kind of communication between the two of us. We're like, "Bitch, don't talk. Like, this is serious right now." So like we sit down, and then Ali Wong extends her hand out. She's like, "Hi, I'm Ali, nice to meet you." She's like, "I'm such a big fan of your music. I love all your stuff." And then I shake her hand back, and I'm thinking, I know who you are. Like, you're fucking huge. Like, I watched all of your comedy specials. Like, such a big fan. My heart was racing. And the reason why I bring that up is because 2 years later, 2019, January of 2019, she was finishing the filming of Always Be My Maybe.
Mm.
And she contacted me through Fat Gums and asked if I would be down to create a song for the film. And they basically, it was supposed to be for a specific scene. They told me what the scene would be about, and so I wrote to it. And I remember thinking too, like, obviously the film is centered on this relationship between these two friends, and it's obviously a love story. And I was like, damn, I haven't written a love song in like so long. Like, I've been so used to just talking about culture, talking about fuck the government, talking about like, it's very like aggressive stuff, right? And so I kind of had to take a step back. I remember even like hitting up some of my friends. I was like, "Have you ever liked someone before, and how did you feel?" And they didn't feel the same way, because I've never been in that situation before,
Mm.
where I had a crush on someone, but they didn't like me back, because I'm just playing. um,
She got the ring. She got the ring.
um, but yeah. So we actually did the track within 3 days. Shout out to OJ, the producer, who did the beat. We got it back to them, and unfortunately, like, they were already actually wrapping up the film, and so it didn't make it on time in the deadline. So it's not
Mm.
actually in the movie, but like Ali, Randall, they're so sweet. They've been so nice. They posted the track. They shared it also on all their pages, and shout out to them. And by the way, big shouts to Randall, who is part of WandaVision, which is my favorite show right now on Disney Plus.
There we go.
Actually, is in one of my skits on Circa 91. He's the voice of the record label dude on the last skit on the album,
Randall Park.
Randall Park.
Fun fact, everybody.
Shout out to Randall and Ali for sure.
Man, shout out to Fresh Off the Boat. You feel me? That's one of my favorite sitcoms and shows. Watch that on Hulu. But
Yeah, that show is really good and very important.
and you also just dropped your single "A Thousand Cuts." I didn't realize it was attached to a documentary. And for all of you who don't know, it's a documentary that is basically talking about the president in the Philippines and the craziness going on. How did that come about?
So the story with that, Miko can attest to this. Back in 2018, or 2019, sorry, I visited the Philippines again with my band, the Balikbayans. We were there for like 5 days straight, just doing gigs back to back. And our last day in Manila, an opportunity came through to perform at the Rappler offices. And for the folks that don't know, Maria Ressa is a journalist for this platform called Rappler. And a lot of their stuff pretty much centers on news, especially about politics and the things that are going on in the Philippines. And they were actually the very first platform who publicized a lot of the murders that were happening due to the drug war
Mhm.
that that's happened over there. A lot of the senseless killings. And so when we were in the middle of performing, I think it was the second song on the set, Maria Ressa comes walking into the office. And again, it's like one of those moments where you're like, oh shit, it's her. And we got a chance to be able to be in conversation with her after our performance. She was really kind to us. And fast forward to December of 2019, I get an email from this director by the name of Ramona Diaz, who was filming a
Mhm.
documentary for Maria Ressa, and they were looking to have, or they were actually looking to use the song "Us" for the doc. And I remember in the middle of one of those email exchanges, Ramona Diaz asked, "Would you actually have the availability to do an original song for the movie?" And of course, I was like, "Hell yeah, I'd love to do it." And, the kind of like the only setback to that was, again, they were on a very very crunched timeline, and they were like, we need the song though in 3 days, like mixed and mastered. I was like, well, shit. And
Sheesh.
mind you, this was December 29th. So on Christmas Eve, Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, that's when I finished recording my vocals. And shout out to Angelo, who's also part of the Balikbayans. He was the one who made the beat and mixed and mastered the track for me. So it was like, if you want something, you go for it. Like
Wow.
there's no when. It's okay. Here it is. Deliver.
Let me say, the essential worker on New Year's Eve made a song in 3 days. And now Variety is saying that it is hopefully gonna be one of the nominated records for best song in the Oscars.
Yee! Life's crazy.
Go, you see how crazy that is? Y'all better go get that, man. Ruby, I'm just so happy to like just be in your presence once again. I think you represent
Likewise.
like you represent not only what like Filipinos. You don't only represent Filipinos, you represent women and you represent just like hard workers in general. The fact that you can like really do everything that you've done for your one project over these past 3 years while going to the Philippines performing, getting your songs on like all these like motion pictures and movies and all that, like being in the Super Bowl, literally every and that's literally just the tip of the iceberg. Like I'm so proud of you and I just can't wait to see what you do with like the next project. That being said, when is your next project coming?
Oh, I like that transition. That was good. Um, so obviously, like I said earlier, I've had nowhere to go. I've just been stuck at home. This is my studio that you see in the background. Honestly, for at least the last 6 months, and especially this year, since the start of this year, every Saturday we've been working on the music. I've been working closely with Angelo from my band. He's co-executive producing the album with me. So
Mm.
I've also been very hands-on with the production and the beats. All I can say with this next project, honestly, it's that it's definitely way better. It's way better than Circa 91. it's gonna the music alone, just sonically, it's gonna sound a lot more mature. We have a lot of live instruments. Obviously, with my work with the balikbayans, that's influenced me in appreciating the live instrumentation more, and seeing the dynamic with that. And I grew up being such a big fan of the Roots. I mean,
Mm.
not to say that every single track on that album is gonna have like live drums and stuff like that on it, but it's definitely gonna sound a lot more cohesive than I think the previous work did. And I'm hoping too that this will reach a broader audience in terms of the subject matter, because I think when it came to Circa 91, I really wanted to introduce myself. That was the purpose of the project, was to let people know who's the person behind the mic. And
Mm.
I'd like to think that now people have a general idea of who I am, that with this next one, I have more of a leeway to be able to experiment with different styles and sounds. So y'all ain't ready. That's all I'll say. You guys are not ready, especially track two. Track two.
Hey, all I know is, Ruby, I'm waiting for the Bay Area West Coast record. Whenever you got that on deck, let me know.
Since we're on the lunch table, I just want to speak this into existence. There is one track right now on the album that I would love to have Pilo and Sweetie on. If I can have Pilo and Sweetie on that track, oh, please.
Ooh.
Let's just say it would sound good with Pilo and Sweetie.
Hey, let me just say, I will play that shit every single day for you. I will play that every single day. Yo, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. May the universe just let that happen. Ruby Ibarra featuring Pilo and Sweetie on the album called.
We're not announcing it yet today. Coming soon, to be announced, TBA.
Hey, I had to fish for it just a little bit, huh?
You're
I
good.
just
You're
had
really
to.
good.
Oh man, thank you guys so much for joining us on the lunch table. Ruby Ibarra, thank you, thank you, thank you. We are going to raid DJ Don Falmuina 808. Ruby, what do you have coming up? I mean, you obviously dropping the album, but like we're in quarantine. You still got work. Any? Is there anything else you're gonna do?
So aside from the album, I'm also streaming on this app. I don't know if you've checked it out yet, but you should if you haven't. It's called Kumu.
Oh yeah.
It's made by Filipinos that are from the Bay. They've moved out to the Philippines recently, but it's just a dope way to connect with Filipinos worldwide. And there's no platform like it. If I could describe it, I tell people all the time, it feels like if IG Live and Twitch had a baby, that would be cool.
Ooh.
But for everybody tune in, definitely check out that app. I'm streaming on there twice a week. And on top of that, again, I bring up my trip with the Balikbayans from 2 years ago. We recently came out with this docu-film. It's a full-length docu-film called 7,000 Miles Homecoming. We premiered it at CamFest last October. It's sold out, by the way. It was we played it at a outdoor cinema. So shout out to everybody that supported that. But this year, we definitely want to bring it to your homes. So that's all I'll say right now. But soon it'll be available at your home for streaming somewhere.
There we go. Well, you heard it here first. That's kumu.com/Ruby Ibarra. Yeah.
You got to download the app and then at
Mm.
Ruby Ibarra.
Okay. Well, there we go. You heard it here first. This is the lunch table, food for thought. My name is Nico Blitz. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you, Ruby, and we are out. Peace.
Thank you, Nico.
Ooh, we got to rate out.